maybe you don't know it yet, but it's practically confirmed that Lotso is coming back in Toy Story 5. This confirmation came after a Pixar merchandise store employee accidentally leaked a video from inside the shop, where we can clearly see Lotso standing next to Lily Pad, and on top of that, there are new evil teddy bear products for sale in the store. But how exactly is this going to happen, considering that at the end of Toy Story 3, he was stuck with other toys on the grill of a garbage truck? Lotso and Sid. Just imagine this scenario. What if Pixar had already planted the seed for Woody and Buzz's worst nightmare back at the end of Toy Story 3? Think about it. Lotso's fate was ending up tied to the grill of a trash truck. And who did we find out worked specifically as a garbage man in that same movie? That's right, Sid. This happens in the scene where Woody hides behind the base of a mailbox, and we can see a guy working on the garbage truck wearing the exact same shirt as Sid. In other words, that guy was Sid, and he was working on the very same truck where Lotso ended up tied up. The theory starts with Sid, now an adult and still completely traumatized by the toy rebellion of his childhood, discovering that the filthy teddy bear on his truck has a life of its own after seeing him moving and talking to the other toys stuck on the grill when they thought no one was around. Instead of freaking out, the former toy destroyer sees an opportunity. Lotso, being an absolute master of manipulation, quickly reads Sid's pent-up anger and convinces him that together they hold the key to hunting down and getting revenge on the toys that ruined both of their lives. In this insane dynamic for Toy Story 5, Sid would be the brawn, using his free access to houses through trash collection and his old childhood torture tools, now upgraded, while Lotso would take on the role of the operations architect. And the perfect way for the two of them to get revenge would be to reveal to the world that toys are actually alive, something Sid has tried to do his whole life, but everyone just called him crazy. But how would they do it? Simple, with Lily Pad's help. As the trailer showed, the little frog-shaped tablet has the ability to record other toys' voices. So could she also record videos and put them on the internet so the whole world can see that Sid and Lotso's greatest enemies, Woody, Buzz, and their friends, are alive? I don't know if this evil trio will pull it off, but it's a situation I'd really love to see, especially how our heroes would manage to escape. Emperor of the Dump. As we mentioned at the start of the video, Lotso ended up in a dumpster, totally trapped like an open-air exhibit. But eventually he's going to get completely worn out, dirty, and old, to the point where we can imagine the garbage man who picked him up will decide the teddy bear is headed for the junkyard for good, where he'll be shredded or incinerated. Which is ironic, since that's exactly what he tried to do to Woody, Buzz, and their friends. Now, imagine the scene. The garbage truck from the end of Toy Story 3 finally reaches its destination, a massive landfill. Knowing his obvious tragic end is near, Lotso manages to get off the conveyor belt and saves himself. And because he's at the dump, the purple bear ends up finding several toys that, just like him, were left behind by their owners and ended up in that horrible place. And we know that if there's one thing Lotso is good at, it's manipulating toys. After all, he did exactly that at Sunnyside Daycare. So he slowly starts leading the forgotten toys of the dump, creating a literal junk army, becoming the first emperor of the dump, ruling with an iron fist over a bizarre and scary army made up exclusively of broken, melted, and rejected toys that the world decided to forget. This new version of Lotso would be much more bitter, dangerous, and dark, bearing the marks of wear and tear and road grime. If before he controlled a daycare out of pure frustration, now he fuels a deep and absolute grudge against any toy lucky enough to belong to a child. And how would he find Woody and his friends? Well, we know our sheriff now has the mission of finding and rescuing lost toys. This job could eventually lead Woody and Lotso to cross paths again, putting the ragdoll cowboy and his rescue toy team, plus Bunny's toys, head-to-head against Lotso's dump army. Be honest, wouldn't that be incredible? Another Lotso. Now let's talk about a sinister possibility that could also explain how Lotso ends up appearing in Toy Story 5. If we go back to the flashback where we discover what turned Lotso into such a bitter and evil toy, we see that when he arrives at his owner's house, he and his friends find her sleeping next to another Lotso. And as we all know very well, absolutely every toy has a life of its own when no one is around, which means that second Lotso, who replaced the villainous Lotso from Toy Story 3, also has his own thoughts in life. It's believed that Lotso's abandonment and his takeover at Sunnyside Daycare happened while Andy was growing up. Since Andy is 17 in Toy Story 3 and heading to college, there's a window of almost a decade for the Pink Bear's reign to have flourished there before Woody and Buzz showed up. Over those 10+ years, we can deduce that the second Lotso eventually stopped being a beloved toy for his owner. And what if she wasn't as kind-hearted as Andy, who chose to donate his toys to Bonnie, and she simply threw him in the trash? Or even worse, he might have become a toy kept in the basement in a dark, dusty box forgotten by time. Her family would have moved and forgotten the box in the basement for years until new owners found it and gave the new bear to a donation center where he would sit forgotten for a few more years. Given this situation, there's a chance that all Lotsos have a tendency toward evil when they aren't loved, which would awaken in this other bear the desire to do bad things, just like what happened with the first Lotso. Determined to get revenge, he simply decides to escape and go after his former owner to get even for all the neglect and loneliness. And on this path of revenge, he could very well end up appearing in the post-credits scene of Toy Story 5, running into Bo Peep and Duke Kaboom's rescue team while Woody is still with his friends in Bonnie's room. Then we'd see Woody returning and Bo Peep introducing him to a new member of the team. In the next shot, we'd see Lotso stepping out of the shadows and looking directly at the cowboy, who would have a look of total shock on his face, and Toy Story 5 would end right there, leaving the perfect cliffhanger for Toy Story 6. Here's a little tip for you. Click the subscribe button down below. That way it'll be much harder for you to miss any of our upcoming videos. 2 Lotsos. But there's another possibility involving that same second Lotso. What if instead of being kept in the basement or the attic, years ago his former owner, or maybe her parents, threw him in the trash? If that happened, there's a big chance he'd end up in a landfill, right? Remember the theory that the first Lotso ended up becoming the emperor of the dump toys. So in this context, there's a high probability the 2 Lotsos meet and end up sharing their stories, discovering they both belong to the same child. Initially, the first Lotso would be furious, since the second bear took his place in the arms of his beloved owner. However, he later realizes that the other Lotso wasn't to blame for being bought and put there. In fact, the ones truly at fault were his owner's parents, who replaced him without a second thought, and his owner herself, who didn't come back for him and his friends, simply preferring to swap him for another teddy bear. So as we mentioned, the Lotsos, who have a natural tendency to be evil when loved by no one, would form an alliance and lead the junk toy army together to reveal to the world that toys have consciousness and feelings, just like humans. That way, no one would ever treat toys like trash again. And to do this, they would break into the house of a famous YouTuber, like Mr. Beast, tie him up, record a video with the help of a LilyPad-style tablet, and then broadcast their message to everyone on the internet. However, just before doing that, they find a YouTube channel made by their former owner, where she posted a testimonial video telling the story of how she lost not one, but both of her Lotsos. She explains that she went back to the place where her toys, Lotso, Big Baby, and Chuckles, had been left, but when she got there, none of them were there anymore. Seeing how sad she was, her parents bought a second Lotso at Al's Toy Barn on the way home, that same villain from Toy Story 2, which was exactly the bear the first Lotso saw through the window when he finally managed to get back home days later, since we know toys move much slower than humans, especially if the humans are in a car. And regarding the second Lotso who ended up in the dump, she'll explain that one day she went to a teen summer camp, and when she came home, her grandmother thought the bear was trash because he was so old and left him to be picked up by the garbage truck. Upon seeing and hearing this story, the two decide to abort the plan because they realize that even after all these years, their former owner still loves both Lotsos and would love to see them again. However, LilyPad has other plans. Now that would be another story, but this plot would definitely make for a great arc to start in Toy Story 5 and finish in Toy Story 6, Mad Max Lotso. Now let's talk about a Mad Max version, but with Lotso at the center of the story. As we said, the life of the strawberry-scented bear turned into being tied to the front grille of that garbage truck, crossing the country and taking rain, scorching sun, snow, and bugs to the face. But we know that villainous bear is extremely determined, so it's not impossible to imagine him somehow managing to unhook himself from the truck grille and falling onto the road, being left behind in the middle of nowhere in a vast desert. In such a hostile environment, Lotso changes completely. Forget that fluffy, manipulative, strawberry-scented bear from Sunnyside. Now he's a true road survivor with a total Mad Max vibe. His plush would be faded, greasy, full of patches and road scars, turning him into a hardened, lost toy shaped by the brutality and isolation of the real world. And being a lost toy, it wouldn't be hard for Woody and Bo Peep to eventually hear a rumor about a purple bear that's lost in the desert and doesn't want to come back to the city. Suspecting it might be that bear, Woody finds a way to go to the desert to find out what kind of evil plan Lotso might be brewing. Upon finding his old enemy, our sheriff discovers that the former villain is actually there by choice because he feels guilty for everything he did in the past. Moved by Lotso's confession of guilt, Woody and Bo Peep help him return to the city and integrate him into their rescue team. However, upon discovering the existence of high-tech toys like LilyPad, something awakens in Lotso. The opportunity to get revenge on all the toys that have owners and are happy, unlike him. Seriously, if Pixar created this story, I'd love to see it. We're wrapping up this video, but if you love having your mind blown, this is the place to be. That's why we picked 2 great videos for you to click, watch, and, best of all, keep hanging out with us.